Saturday night was last night. Damian Lillard won the three-point contest. Kashad Johnson won the dunk contest. In college hoops yesterday, number 1, Falls. Number 16, Texas Tech visited and beat number 1 Arizona 78-75. There's one top 10 matchup on the slate. Number 5, Iowa State beat number 9, Kansas. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-thru oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people. I'm Alex Barth on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub, your next update at 9 o'clock.
Deep three, violent two-hand slam.
98.5 The Sports Hub. This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle. The show that's all Patriots, all football, all year long. The clutch wins, the tough losses, and the game-changing plays. This is the show that has it all covered. Sunday Kickoff, brought to you in part by Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka. Now, here are Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle.
All right, welcome into Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, February 15th, 2026. No week number for you. We're on to the offseason. It's Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle, Ryan Garvin behind the glass after pretty wild few weeks for the team, for the show, for us. We had, 3-hour shows, 4-hour shows. Jake Seymour had to fill in because I was flying to the Super Bowl. I did one from the Super Bowl. I think you were off one week, too, because there was a storm. Yeah. We had Matt Dolphin here, all over the place. But we settle back in to our 2-hour program as we get going on the off season here. And again, we're not going anywhere, at least for now. Show still runs through the draft, but it's going to be more of a sprint than a marathon going through this off season, Cerrone. We'll touch a little bit on the game on Sunday. We just haven't been on since. More so how it relates to the off season. Then we'll get into some early off season thoughts. If you want to join us, 617-779-0985. But here we are, Cerrone, a few weeks later than what it's been, but happy offseason to you.
Yeah, happy offseason to you, Alex. I mean, it's going to be an interesting offseason in many ways, but should be a very optimistic offseason with after the regular season we just wrapped up. I think I want to say sky's the limit for these guys, but it should be pretty interesting how things unfold and to see how attractive this team really is come free agency.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, free agency, I think, is bigger than the draft this year. And obviously, I love the draft. We're going to do a ton of draft stuff on the show, but picking 31st is not the same as picking 4th. I wish they were picking 32nd. It'd be a little more easier to handle. But, I mean, I'll have my first mock draft up early this week. I usually do it the day after the Super Bowl. I just thought that was, That might have been a little much with them in the game. I was like, I'll write it on the flight home on Monday, and then I'll, post it Tuesday. I'll be a day late. And I was just so zonked from that whole week. I would have been drafting guys that don't even exist. But we'll start here and we'll relate it back to the game. The Patriots don't need to tear this thing down and build it back up.
No.
I think that was some people's gut reaction to the game. I get why. They did not have a good game, and that's fair. But now that we've all had a chance to take a step back and breathe, the foundation's there, and Mike Vrabel talked about this after the game. The foundation's there. They are going to have young players get better. That's going to be part of their growth.
Mm-hmm.
This offseason is more about targeted additions in key places, like 2 or 3 big additions, rather than rebuilding the whole roster. The kind of players you're talking about making that impact, you're just probably not going to find picking at 31st in the draft. So I think stay the course. Doesn't mean you keep everybody. Doesn't mean you change nothing. But stay the course and look to bolster the roster where you have a chance to bolster it. That's the big thing that I feel coming away from the game. And then just within that, the trenches. And where can you find ways to improve in the trenches? And that should be a on both sides of the ball. And that should be a big theme throughout this offseason.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think one thing we've always said about this team since week 1 was their lack of depth. I think you can use the draft this time instead of building your core. You build your depth with the draft, and you get your key players in free agency, like some more veteran players. I'm gonna say get old guys, but you can get some more impact players through free agency or the trade market or whatever. But if you're trying to add depth to this team, linebacker depth, edge rusher, and they're not saying don't get a big edge rusher through trade or free agency, Max Crosby, but you try and add your depth through the draft and just continue to build up your roster in the right direction. But I think you make your big moves in the free agent market through trades. And I think the key thing from that Super Bowl that I took away was it wasn't so much a lack of talent. It was just a lack of knowledge. I think getting some guys older and more experienced, I think is as important as what you do in the offseason when it comes to drafting and free agency. I think some guys need to hit the lab, get to some of these camps with veteran players and things like that. And now it's just sharpening your tools based off of what you just went through, what you saw, what you can pick up on. And as opposed to, let's say, Will Campbell or Drake May, you're learning new coaching staff, you're getting acclimated into being a professional. All that stuff is old now. Now it's time to get some knowledge and technique and stuff like that and get in the lab. And I think all that stuff is just as important as who they pick up in the offseason.
So three things on that that I think are big. One, Drake May hasn't run the same offensive system basically back-to-back years since high school.
Yeah.
His true freshman year and his redshirt freshman year, there was carryover at OC, Phil Longo, but didn't really play as a true freshman. So in terms of like playing in the same offense back-to-back years, and he kept saying, he kept making the same joke down the stretch, knock on wood, Josh McDaniels being back, blah, blah, blah. So that'll help him. That internal growth is important. I think some of it too, well, let me say this first. Something that stood out to me in the Super Bowl, especially in terms of the defense, the Seahawks defense, the talent gap was there, but I think compounding the issue, it was that's a Seattle group that's been together for a few years now, for the most part. Like, they added Nakeem and Rory this year, but that's a group that's been together, and they played like they've been together. The Patriots offense was a lot of new pieces, and they played like it was a lot of new pieces. And I know that late in the year you're counting on experience, but 1 year versus 3 or 4 years, there's a difference. So just guys getting used to each other, I think, is going to be part of it. And then the other thing you said about experience, this is going to surprise some people, I think, as we go through the offseason. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't need them, to me, and this is speaking very general, there's some room for nuance within this. Offense is where I want them busy in free agency. They need a starting left guard. They need a receiver. Tight end's the one spot where I can maybe go either way. But I just think, could you find a starting left guard in the draft? Yeah, probably. But you're going back to being so young up front, especially if you move off Garrett Bradbury and it's Jared Wilson at center now. I want them to have some more. I don't want 3 young guys next to each other, the 2 young guys next to each other again. Get an experienced left guard, receiver. Same thing. I just don't think they're getting that impact player at 31. Maybe Casey Concepcion, maybe. You're definitely not getting him in the second or third round.
And he's basically Pop Douglas.
He might be closer to Diggs. I'm a big fan of his.
So? Yeah, I'm a fan too. Dude, smooth.
maybe Pop Douglas right now, Diggs down the road would be the better way to put it. Yeah, he's got some growing to do. But, versus a guy like A.J. Brown or Brian Thomas Jr. if he becomes available. I don't know how you feel about Alec Pierce, but just a guy that's been in the league and knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them. I don't want them to go get Mike Evans either. Especially a wide receiver, there's a flip side here. I want somebody that has some youth that's going to grow with Drake May, but they've got a quarterback, they've got a left tackle, they've got a couple receivers. Some of them need extensions, but a couple receivers on rookie contracts. That they have young, affordable talent. That's a side of the ball where they can afford to spend. Now, the inverse of that is I'd like to see them attack defense in the draft, at least at the top. Last year, they were kind of offense at the top, defense on day 3. I'd flip that. You have 2 high-paid defensive tackles. You're going to have 2 high-paid corners once the Gonzalez extension kicks in. Robert Spillane's not, for linebackers, making decent money. And it's a little bit older of a group. That's where I'd like to see them get in, and it's a good defensive draft. That's where I'd like to see them get in the draft. So I know, like, as we go through this, I'm going to talk about a lot of defensive players in the draft. It's not ignoring Drake May. I just think they'll be better off. And it's not like this every year. You can't always say one side of the ball draft, one side of the ball free agency. I just think that's how it works this year. I like them to attack offense through free agency and defense in the draft.
Yeah, you want to put some veteran guys around your quarterback. I mean, it's that simple. Like you said, you don't want to be too extreme and get old guys, and you don't want to bring in guys. I know there's a lot of guys that have talent, but there's a lot of jerks out there too. You don't want to bring somebody in that's going to really, derail everything, the kind of the vibe that you have in your locker room, unless you feel your locker room and your coaching staff is strong. But, I mean, there's some good players out there that you can get to put around May. I agree with you. You want to get some good veteran guys that you see all the clips and highlights, NFL film stuff of the Seahawks kind of calling out what they're doing, whatever. You want some guys on your side that can do the same thing to them.
Right.
But can still also run a 4.5 40 and hadn't lost a step. You want a good combination of that. Defensively, if you're looking for a defensive end, I think this is the draft for you.
Yep.
You say you're picking 31st. There's going to be a good defensive end still sitting around.
A couple.
Right, a few that you can grab at 31 that can potentially be impact players. And similar to last season, I know the poor kid might have ruined his career, but Pierce in Atlanta, he was a later first-round pick, but the kid had like 9.5 sacks or something like that for Atlanta this year.
Yeah.
If you can find you a guy like that late in the first round, you're doing something, and you pair him up with what you got in the middle of that D-line, now you're an extremely dominant defensive team. But I think,
or you just trade that pick for Max Crosby. We'll get into that.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, and you're all set. I mean, even as bad as the offense looked on Sunday, I think Max Crosby gets to Sam Darnold a few of those times that he got away.
Makes things easier for the offense.
Yes, it does. Now you got Schroeder Fields, and you're not trapped inside the 5 10 times like you were on Sunday. But I think there's plays to be made for this team, and they're in a good position. I mean, it's a. We haven't said that in a few years since we've been doing the show.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever said that on the show.
Except for when we didn't even say it when they were picking Drake May, because we weren't sure how they were going to do that.
Well, and they just had so much else they had to do on top of that.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. But I think this team, there's small changes you can make, tweaks to this team, not complete overhaul, but just tweaks to this team that'll keep them up there near the top of the AFC. And I think they're in a good place. And there's a lot of teams that by name and star power are in a good place, but they're not really set up like we think they are. So we look at the AFC, we look at some teams, oh yeah, they're going to be back. It's not necessarily true. Some teams need a lot of work, but I think the Patriots aren't one of them.
All right, let's grab a quick call here before we hit the break. You want to join us, 617-779-0985. Ryan, I'm going to need you to pull him up. The phone screen is being weird for me. Randy in Providence. Randy, what's up?
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing this morning?
Morning.
So yeah, you kind of touched on the guard bit there. I think you got to bring in an experienced guy, put him in between Campbell, and move Wilson over to center. Like, he's clearly not a guard. Don't need to waste a lot of time on that. But Joel Bitonio out there, I mean, the entire Cleveland line is out there. Vrabel has experience with those guys. He makes a lot of sense to me as a guy to bring in, even just on a one-year deal, maybe with a third, fourth round pick. You grab a developmental guy like, Jeremiah Wright out of Auburn is a guy I like, or Jaden Roberts out of Alabama. Bring him in, kind of train him up behind Bitonio for a year, and then bring him on. Campbell and Wilson at that point would be in their third year. You wouldn't be as worried about the experience. Two questions I've got for you, and bear with me because I could talk to you forever about the draft, but one question about a current player, Barmore. I think I've thought for most of the season that he's on his way out of town potentially. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I've met a lot of the Patriots players. You have too, I'm sure. Barmore doesn't seem like a personality fit for what we're looking for culture-wise. So to me, he might be a guy that on his way out. I also wonder what you think about movement in the draft. We've got 2 4th-round picks, 4 6th-round picks, and kind of at a point where I think we might need to target certain talents. And specifically, I like Denzel Boston in the draft. If he were to fall to like 20 or 21, maybe trade up there, grab him. And then one last quick question. There's a few really long, good coverage linebackers that I like in this draft. Specifically, 2 guys that jump off the page to me, Lander Barton out of Utah and Eric Gentry out of USC. And I'm wondering if you think that we would be able to work a guy like that into this defensive scheme. Those guys are, 6'4", 6'5", like 240, really, really long. Gentry's a little skinnier, looks like a pterodactyl out there, but really good in coverage. Zone coverage specifically with Gentry. Barton's a little bit of everything. That kid comes from a football family. He's good. I think they'd be like 4th round for Barton and maybe 6th round for Gentry. So you're not talking about investing a whole lot of draft capital. But to get a guy like that can cover those big, tall, because I just keep going back to Atlanta Falcons game, Drake London just dunking all over Marcus Jones that day. And Marcus Jones is great, but he's never going to be bigger than like 5'8". And sometimes in those matchups, you need somebody who can just height-wise match up against a guy. So do you think that, it's a whole bunch of stuff I just threw. But, the Barmore, the movement in the draft, and the longer linebackers fit into this scheme.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Randy. A lot there. On the veteran guards, I'm with them. There's a couple guys. Isaac Seumalo from the Steelers is the big name. David Edwards from the Bills. You mentioned Bitonio as well. And that, you could definitely get a developmental guard later in the draft, too. It doesn't stop you from doing that. Mm-hmm. The Barmore thing, the legal stuff aside, because that's, if he's found guilty of what he's accused of doing, he's out of here, obviously. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of people be like, well, Milton Williams worked out, so now you can move on from Christian Barmore.
No, they work together.
Right. The whole point of that is you have both of those guys. It's not one or the other. That's what makes the defense tick. So there are some good defensive tackles in this draft. If they move on from Barmore, it's something we talk about more. Dominic Orange is a guy I'm fascinated by, different kind of defensive tackle, but I'll just throw that out there. That was another one. And then they should be moving up in the draft. They have 11 picks. They have 4 6th-round picks. They should be moving up, at least in some places. Maybe not in the 1st round, but do you move up in the 2nd? Do you turn 2 of those 4ths and try to get it back into the top 100, something like that? They should be looking to move up. Ton of good coverage linebackers in this draft. I know he just mentioned a couple guys. There's some guys I like too. Kyle Lewis from Pitt, who's going to go a little bit higher. He's going to be a top 100 pick, but that dude can freaking play. That he's really, really good, and he's under the radar because he plays with Pitt.
And you need guys like that because your situation covering tight ends. I think you need more guys.
I know about linebackers on receivers. I don't know about linebackers.
No.
But we are well up against it here, so we're going to take a break. Before we get to, I wasn't even going to get to that stuff until the second half of the show, the guys that might be bringing in. I want to talk about the guys that are on the roster that they have to decide on. We'll do that next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
On Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. It's time for our Restoring the Roster segment. Restoring the Roster is brought to you by Blue Sky Restoration Contractors. If you're experiencing property damage from ice dams, roof leaks, or burst pipes, our guys at Blue Sky are ready to respond 24/7. So visit goblusky.com. Blue Sky Restoration, no E, blusky.com. Blue Sky Restoration, restoring your property and your life for a brighter tomorrow. Only 6 unrestricted free agents for the Patriots. They got a couple restricted free agents, too. A couple names in there, Jack Gibbons, Alex Austin. I would think those guys will be, minimum level tendered back. So let's focus on the 6 unrestricted guys here. We'll just kind of run through them. Do we think they'll be back? Should they be back? Yes or no? We'll start with the toughest one, which is K'Lavon Chaisson. Came in on a low money, prove it deal. This offseason kind of been a disappointing first-round pick over the start of his career, bounced around the league, comes to the Patriots, gets 7.5 sacks. So each of his first 3 years, he had 1 sack each, had 2 sacks in 23, had 5 last year, now 7.5. He is entering his age 27 season. So this is a guy that a pass rusher, still young, trending in the right direction, first real chance to get paid. Now, he was good for the Patriots, but he does kind of have the making of a secondary rusher. He's not that primary guy. Do they bring him back and try to put him next to a Max Crosby or first-round pick and really invest a lot at that position? Or is he Mark Anderson? Did he have a good year, and he's going to get paid off a good year and go somewhere else, and in reality, he'll be the guy he was earlier in his career? His contract's really tough to project. I've seen anywhere from $9 million, that's probably too low, to into the 20s. My guess is he's somewhere in the high teens. Maybe he gets to 20 if it's a really in-demand market. The fact it's such a deep draft probably doesn't help him. But you never know with these things. Premium position. Do you think he's coming back? Should he be coming back? If the price gets out of control, should the Patriots stay on it? Where are you at with Chaisson?
I think that's the key right there. If the price gets too high, then you're going to have to let him go and let him go and feed his family, get the big bag somewhere else. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Cleveland, Tennessee, wherever. I think there's going to be somebody who's ultra desperate and will spend the money for him. But I mean, if you guys are close, then you make the deal and you keep him around. You absolutely keep him. But like you said, if it goes from 13, 14 million to 25 million, then it's like, you know what, man, we're gonna have to go in and move on, and you let him go get his bag, and that's it. But I think if it's relatively close and it's low in the teens, I think you keep him around. I think he's a good player. I think he was a good fit for you. He had good stretches of football, and I think what's needed is another guy on the opposite side to really let them, for everybody to eat. But I'd keep him around at the right number. But if it gets astronomical, you got to let him go. I mean, not disrespectful to him, but go on and get paid somewhere else, man. You're going to get the bag. But if it gets too crazy when it comes to the Patriots, I wouldn't do it.
And this is part of what makes it tricky is even if they keep him, they still need another edge guy.
You're still going to need a guy, yeah.
Noting this morning that maybe Harold Landry needs surgery, and Landry's an unknown here. If Landry had a good season, you keep them together, you're rolling, or it's okay. That's a spot we're going to upgrade and you move on. But 2 edge guys in a season is tough. If the market's running up for him, it's running up for everybody on the edge. You're not going to draft 2. I don't think they would do that. I don't think you'd have 2 rookie rushers on either side. But I'm with you. I don't think you can pay him as like a top 10 edge rusher in the league. Now, maybe it doesn't get to that. It probably won't. But if some team wants to get stupid, I think you have to let a team get stupid, and then you figure it out from there.
Someone's going to get stupid.
How about the guy we just heard from, Jalen Hawkins?
Look, I thought that combination, that safety combination, ends up being a good combo for this team. I thought he was a good player. I think he's a good player. I think he's a guy you kind of keep around because we've talked about on this show how their lack of depth or talent in the safety positions was kind of a weakness for them. But I don't think it was a weakness for them this season. I thought they were surprised. I thought they were good. And I kind of want to keep that thing together and watch it develop. And look, I don't think he's going to get, $25 million this season or whatever it may be, but I think you try and keep him around. You try and work something out because I think you have something in that secondary, and I don't think I want to mess with that too much right now.
Yeah, they need to add a safety one way or the other. I think that's a sneaky need for this offseason. So they can either play more 3 safety sets. That would be the fun reason to add the guy and the creative reason, but they also just need the depth. No disrespect to Del Pettis, but they could upgrade it at backup safety. But being able to use 3 safeties, especially after seeing what the Seahawks did, would be a good option. But I'd like to see Hawkins back. This is a tricky one. He's 29. He's coming off a career year. This is probably his last chance to get a relatively big contract. He doesn't play a premium position. You might be able to find a deal that works with him. I'd like to see him back. Sneaky big part of the defense, and a guy, they should be able to make it work with him. It might be a little more money than, some people expect. I think that deal could come out and people are like, really? That much for Jalen Hawkins? But it's a spot I think they can afford to spend a little more than maybe people would expect. Because like you said, you got some good with him and Craig Woodson, and you got those corners together. Keep that defensive core together. It worked. Speaking of the defensive core, last defensive free agent, Khyiris Tonga.
I want to keep him back, keep him half back on this roster. We saw this season that depth at defensive tackle was very important for this team late in the season when the injuries started piling up. So you don't want to end up in that situation again. And I think you can get him for a relatively good deal because of the depth and because he wasn't a starter and got premium numbers or anything like that. So I think you can keep him around. I think he's a guy you kind of you got to have out there for depth behind Milton Williams and Barmore when those guys are being subbed in and out or whatever. You want a guy that you understand what he brings to the table. You don't have to coach him up or anything like that. You already understand what he brings. I think I want to keep him around. I think he was a good fit for this D-line.
Yeah, he showed some flashes as pass rusher this year that he didn't have in the past, so he might head to the open market, with that. The primary run-stopping defensive tackles, though, there's still not a huge market for those guys. He's even somebody I'd do the thing where, go see what you can get, bring it back to us, we'll match it if we feel like we can match it.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to break the bank. I think he will be back. I think he should be back. Probably the least tricky of the 3. On offense, Austin Hooper.
No, I'm move on. They need a young tight end, man. They need I don't know, through the draft or Kyle Pitts would be the ideal one.
Isaiah Likely?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Bring him home. I think they need a younger guy. They need not just for Hooper, but the Henry's a good player, but I think they need a younger version of Henry. They need a younger version. They need the next Atlanta version of Hooper. Yeah. They need another guy. They need somebody to compare it with Drake May, who's going to be his security blanket for years across the middle of that field. And I think he has a good connection with the tight ends. Give him a young guy that's a playmaker on the outside, and also a guy who I know Gronk is a rare bird, but somebody that when you see those defensive ends kind of teeing off, a guy that can legit chip one of these defensive ends and help out your offensive line a little bit, be more of a true tight end, but yet be a dominant guy in the pass game. And I think they need to move on and get a guy like that. So I think Hooper's the one to go, but I would love Kyle Pitts or Likely to be a Patriot next season.
It's a really good spot offseason, need a tight end. And so look, if you get to May, if you get to OTAs and he's still a free agent, he wants to come back on a $1 million deal.
Yeah.
I have nothing against him.
Yeah, it's not him at all. Yeah.
But that's just a spot where you're going to have a ton of opportunities to upgrade, a ton of opportunities to get younger, which you need to do. And I think they need to capitalize on that. The one thing I'll say, and look, I would take Kyle Pitts at the end of the day, but you make a really good point about they need to get back to the all-around tight end. And those guys don't just grow on trees. But, a name that I've kind of seen people talk about a little bit more now, I didn't see it as much earlier, a guy like Cade Otton in Tampa, who can do a little bit of everything. Oscar Delp in the draft out of Georgia, a guy that can block and be a factor in the run game. And, maybe it's a combination. Maybe you sign a guy who can do a little bit of both, but is more of a blocker, and then you draft a pure receiver, a guy like a Michael Trigg, right? Or you do the opposite, and you sign a Kyle Pitts, but then you make a point to get a guy with maybe a little more blocking background, a guy like a Foster Moreau, say, in free agency. But they need to get younger. They need to upgrade at the tight end spot, the second tight end spot. So, if Hooper wants to come back and he'll come back on little money as the third guy, I'm not going to say no, right?
Yeah.
It's not like get him off the team, but
Right.
there's only so many snaps to go around at that position. It's a spot they have a chance to get younger and upgrade, and I think they need to take that opportunity. Two more here. We can kind of go quick with these. Vidarian Lowe.
It might be time. Well, I want to say that, but he filled in well for them this season. When Campbell was out, I thought he played decent football. I didn't think he gave up a ton of pressures or anything like that. But again, if you're trying to, build the depth of this team and continue to improve the offensive line, I think they might, not because they don't want him around, but the same situation with Hooper. I think they're trying to add more pieces to this offensive line and get more depth and go in a different direction. So he just might be the odd man out here. But I thought he was decent, but I can understand if they move on.
Here's what I'll say about Lowe. He's a backup left tackle. He's a solid backup left tackle. Backup left tackles get paid now. Jalen Moore last year in free agency got a 2-year, $30 million contract from the Chiefs, having made just 12 NFL starts. And by the way, they then went and took a tackle in the first round. Jalen Moore was their backup for most of the year. That is how anybody who's going to, ask about replacing Will Campbell, that is how in-demand left tackles are. That is how hard they are to obtain. The backups are getting $15 million a year.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Patriots need to, I don't know if the Patriots need to pay Vidarian Lowe. And I don't think he's going to get quite that because Jalen Moore was decent. Yeah. He's pretty good in those 12 starts. But, could Vidarian Lowe get close to $10 million a year? Wouldn't be the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
No,
so,
not at all. He knows it.
Yeah, and he knows it. So I think he's definitely going to hit the open market. Mm-hmm. And I don't need him to give Vidarian Lowe, $8 to $9 million a year. They drafted Marcus Bryant last year. I know he's mostly played right tackle, but you got him you can work with. They can go back into the draft, maybe get a, developmental swing tackle guy like that they can work with. Go elsewhere in free agency, find a guy with a little less experience. I mean, they got Vidarian Lowe in a trade during roster cuts. So, and then the last one, Thayer Munford.
No, I think it's time to move on. I mean, I'm not even going to.
Well, look, maybe if you can get him for little money, maybe he ends up Lowe's replacement as the backup left tackle. But, they don't need to keep Thayer Munford. All right, those are the pending free agents, but there's more contract stuff. The Patriots have to decide on this offseason. Stephon Diggs, Mike Onwenu, Christian Gonzalez. We'll cover that next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub.
Clogged drain never happens at a good time. John Stewart Drain Cleaning with locations at Whoop.
YouTube. Well, it's streaming live. You can rewind, but it is also still there after we're done on the Sports Hub YouTube channel. You can also check out Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff wherever you get your podcast. Ryan does a great job. Usually the first hour is up before the second hour is over. Second hour, you got to wait till that's over for us to post it, obviously. But Ryan gets that one up pretty quickly, too. So you can check that out there. So we talked about the Patriots pending free agents, but that's not it that they have to decide in terms of contracts. They have some guys that, for one reason or another, the contracts are wonky. Guys are still under contract, but realistically are not going to play under the deal the way it's currently written. Probably not going to play under the deal the way it's currently written in 2026. Could be due to guaranteed money, things like that. And the big one is Stephon Diggs. Diggs' cap charge jumps by almost $20 million this year. He's due, I think it's $16 million in early March 16th, I believe. So that'd be mid-March, never mind. He, had a good overall season, kind of faded down the stretch. He's older, 32 years old. And obviously there's the legal stuff looming as well. That court case will continue in April. Should the Patriots rework Diggs' deal? He's probably going to want added term. Do you do that for a guy that's 32? Or is this just the natural parting point? And hey, he was here to be a bridge. He was always here for a good time, not a long time. Mm-hmm. You got what you needed out of him. He got what he needed out of you. You go your separate ways, but now number one wide receiver becomes a major need for the offseason. Where do you stand with Stephon Diggs?
It's a tough one because you have to ask yourself, is he still a wide receiver one? Is he still that guy? Does he still have that ability? Like you said, he faded down the stretch, and I think a part of that's kind of getting overlooked is we weren't sure what kind of play he was going to be coming into the season with the knee. How many games he's going to play? Is he going to look like himself? And he looked better earlier than he did late. And I think a part of that was he ended up playing 20 games on that knee. And I think he lost a step as time went on and whatever. But I think I wouldn't say playing with fire with another year, an older guy who had that kind of injury, and expecting him to just keep getting healthier and faster as time goes on. He's an older guy, and I think being a dominant wide receiver one, I think those days are behind him. Now, if you know for sure you can't find another solid replacement, then you have no choice but to pay this guy. But if you think you can get Alec Pierce or somebody like that, or in the trade market with A.J. Brown, or pay the money for Pickens, go ahead. But if you know you're going to have a tough time replacing him, you might have to bite the bullet on this one and keep him around. But if it was up to me, I think I'd move on and make a hard run at a younger version of him.
Yeah.
I mean, a wide receiver one. Like I said, the A.J. Browns and the Carl Pickens, Alec Pierce, deep threat down the sidelines, speedy guy who probably absolutely wants out of Indy right now. But, yeah, I would try and find a younger version of him and move on. I mean, I think you'd be playing with fire here if you try and bring him back at that price point and expect him to be healthier going forward. I think last season was a miracle. But to expect it again going into this season, I think is kind of dangerous. It had nothing to do with the off-field stuff. It's strictly on the field and health and age and that type of thing, and losing a step.
And I mean, there's the off-field stuff too, right? And if
that's major, yeah.
Yeah, if he's found guilty of that, like I said for Barmore earlier, then obviously that's the conversation. But that aside, I think you can't move on from him without a plan. And I was as high on Diggs, them signing him as anybody. And I've loved him here, and I think he was great. But if you can get younger, and like you said, he's getting. I think he's going to be his age 32 season, right?
Yeah.
Age 32 season, but he'll turn 33 in November. So he's older. You hear okay, but he's a year removed off the ACL. That's when guys usually get back to full form. Like those two kind of counteract for me. Could he get another 1,000-yard season out of him? Yeah. Maybe. But, are you going to be able to do the deal for just 1 year? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's going to be tricky. If he wants multiple years, now's your chance to get younger. Two more guys. These are just guys that are out of guaranteed money but still under contract. Mac Hollins, they, according to Over the Cap, save $4.4 million with virtually no dead money if they cut him. He has no guaranteed money. He's probably not going to want to play on that. That seems like an obvious one. You rework that and you keep him here. And then Mike Onwenu's cap hit, according to Mike Reese, he wrote this morning, is $25 million with no guaranteed money. So there's really no incentive for either side to play out that year of the deal. I try to get something done with him. And like a 2-year extension. He played really well down the stretch. He's one of their few offensive players that played better down the stretch. You're already going to have to replace one, if not two starters on the offensive line. Yeah. Morgan Moses, Garrett Bradbury, not young guys. You need the left guard. It's a lot. You're really starting to overhaul the line. I would try to work out something with Mike Onwenu to get him back.
Yeah, I'm not letting him out. I'm not letting him leave the building. I don't know how legal it is, but I'm sending him text messages now. Like I'm not.
No, he's on the team. He's not a pending free agent. Like he's under contract. The contract's just a mess.
I'm not letting him leave the building because, like you said, if you let him go, now you're back to rebuilding the offensive line all over again. And if you got one sure thing on that offensive line, I'm keeping that. If he said he played better down the stretch, was better in the playoffs against those defenses, I'm keeping him around. He's earned his money. You've earned the right to stick around and stay. The other guys, like I said, Bradbury and Moses, they're older. So you're going to have to replace them eventually. But if I got this guy here, I know I'm all set with that position. I'm not messing with that. I'm paying him probably before I pay a lot of other guys on this team.
And you can open up, I believe, I don't know exactly how it works because you'd have to see what the extension is. I think they can open up around like $10 million in cap space if they rework his deal. Now, the deal's going to eat into some of that, but there's something to be done there. So they'll have to decide on that. And that's something, again, you want to do before free agency so you kind of know where you're at. So those are the guys that need the deals reworked. How about the extension candidates? Let's keep going through this Patriots roster, the rebuilding of the roster next on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
This is
before we get to the fun part of the offseason, right? Who are they going to bring in? We got one more guy to talk about, Christian Gonzalez, extension eligible. It's not the only one. Everybody from that draft is too. So him, Kayshon Boutte, Pop Douglas. Boutte will be an interesting one, but first, and Gonzalez. There was some people wondering during the season, is he their kind of guy? Are they going to pay him? Could he be a trade chip? Went on a tear down the stretch, was great in the Super Bowl. Mike Vrabel talked after the AFC Championship about how we saw Gonzalez change over the last few games. He should be back. He should 100% be back.
I mean, he's give him what he wants. I think he earned that. I said this yesterday. I think if the offense would have found a way to score some points, that dude might have been MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, the offensive player of the year was a non-factor in that Super Bowl because of this man. I mean, he was spectacular, and he has been the entire postseason. I think the secondary in general were lights out in the postseason. Yeah, he showed that there was a lot of people who would complain about him during the season because he didn't have a ton of interceptions. Well, how can you be a top corner? You're not forcing interceptions, whatever. But no, he was forcing a lot of 3-and-outs. And you saw that firsthand in the Super Bowl against the best offensive player in the league. And he completely took him out of the game. And they just stopped going to him at one point. But, yeah, you give him what he wants. I mean, he's an impact player. He's a superstar player at that position. He's all the things. He's a money maker for the team. He sells jerseys. He's all the things you want. He's a good dude on and off the field. You keep those guys around, and he's a part of your core, your future with Drake May. And you need superstars on both sides of the ball, and you got one over there, and you got you a young quarterback. I'm absolutely keeping him around and paying him what he's worth.
In terms of paying him, though, and you said give him what he wants. There is a little bit of a clock on this in that Devin Witherspoon, who also had a case for Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, he did.
He's up for an extension, too. And the way these things work, they're both going to be the highest paid corner in the sport at some point.
Yeah.
Whoever signs the deal first will reset the market, and then the next guy will negotiate off of that.
Yeah.
There is some urgency if you're the Patriots. Do you pay a little more to get it done sooner with the idea that, okay, if you're paying a little more than you want, you still might end up paying more than that, depending on where the Seahawks come in with Witherspoon. That 30.1 is what Sauce Gardner got after I think it was Stingley got 30. That's per year, 30.1 million a year. I don't think you're going up by 100,000 again. I think you're talking about 31, 32 million, and then the next one might go up by that by that decimal point. But I'd like to see the Patriots get it done quickly and put the pressure on the Seahawks and not be the second team to sign the deal. This is where the Cowboys always strike out. They wait to sign these deals, and 3 or 4 guys get paid, and they end up spending much more money than they should. So
yeah, I think you get this done quickly. Yeah, and if they want to pay him more, it's so be it. They won the Super Bowl. Go ahead, he's worth the $1 million more, whatever you want to say. But yeah, I mean, you get it done early, get it out the way. That way, there's no mystery. You're not answering questions from us every 15 minutes about it. Go ahead and get it done. Get him taken care of, and move on to your offseason. And yeah, like you said, put pressure on Seattle. Let's see if they want to break the bank for him, or if they want to, run it back, or if they want to hit the reset button. They got to pay Kenneth Walker too, who had a spectacular Super Bowl as well. So they have some decisions to make, but you go ahead and you handle your business in-house first.
You giving Kayshon Boutte an extension this offseason?
Oh man, that's a tough one because I think I honestly want to go after Alec Pierce, but because I think he's a deep threat guy, he can replace what Boutte brings to the table. But I think there's chemistry there with Drake May, and I kind of don't want to mess him up when it comes. I understand the play calling, his offensive coordinator is going to be the same going into next season, but I kind of want some of the pieces around him to be the same. And if you lose out on Diggs, and then Boutte ends up going out, now you're kind of changing a lot around Drake May. I'm going to try and get Boutte taken care of, but it all depends if he wants to go get paid somewhere else or whatever. But I think I'm gonna offer him an extension, but I'm not going to break the bank for him.
That's one. Yeah, if he'll sign a team friendly deal, great. I actually think it might make sense for both sides to wait. There's just so many of these deals are done on precedent, and a guy that had no production his rookie year, and then kind of has come on the way he has, where it's not 1,000-yard seasons, but they're solid. There's not a ton of comparable contracts for that.
Good point.
So more data helps both sides at the end of the day. And
do you think if I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sure Booty will have an ask, and I'm sure the Patriots will have an ask. I just think, they'll probably be further apart than average, just given kind of what he's done so far. And that might be one where both sides wait. You at least get into the start of next year. And maybe if, he's performing a certain way at the start of next year, for the first half, it's an in-season thing. If not, they do it, next offseason before free agency. But, yeah, that's not one where I think they need a rush.
Do you think he has the potential to be a 1,000-yard receiver? If he got the targets that Diggs picked up, do you think he has the ability?
Not in the way Diggs was. He's a deep ball guy. Mm-hmm. He could in the right circumstance. Can the Patriots build that circumstance? I'm not sure. Like if he was on Kansas City, right? You put him in the role that
man.
Yeah. Tyquan's in. Yeah, he could get there because he's better than Tyquan. Can the Patriots get there? Maybe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It would take a couple moves, but that's when they can wait. All right, let's get a quick check of the headlines. We'll come back. Your calls. Plus, let's get on to the real off-season meat. Who are they adding? Who are they bringing in? Not the guys that are here, the guys that will be here. Do that for the next hour. Plus your call, 617-779-0985 on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
From the Delaware Tiger Studios, this is Boston's home for sports.
Now, the way I generally look at it, there's some extenuating circumstances, but usually can make like 2 or 3 big additions over the course of an offseason. That's between the draft, free agency, trades, all of it. So we usually break it down. We've done this before, right? Like the big 3 needs, the 3 boxes the Patriots have to check. They can have more than 3 needs, but those ones might be addressed, more supplementally. They're not going to be a big contract, a high draft pick, whatever. The things you want to see the Patriots hammer, really get done, position-wise. This is what we're going to be talking about for the next 2.5 months. Cerrone, your big 3 needs for the Patriots.
Big need, defensive end, elite defensive end. Max Crosby, Hendrickson. That's you need an elite edge rusher. We've seen the benefit of having a dominant line. The Super Bowl on the opposite side. Just being able to get after the quarterback without sending a bunch of guys, I think, is huge. And we'll get those turnovers that, Patriot fans love the most. I think having an elite edge rusher who can not only get to the quarterback, but can stop the run, guys getting on the outside, set the edge, all those things. I think an elite edge rusher is number one. I'm going Two, I don't know why I'm so big on this, but tight end. I think they need a playmaking tight end to really open up that offense and just put crazy fear across the middle of that field. I just seen the thing where Fox Sports had Kyle Pitts going to the Patriots. That's their prediction, whatever. But that type of player in the middle of the field, a guy for Drake May, a major target for him. Also a big guy in the red zone. We saw them have their red zone struggles early in the season. That probably kept them from being a team that could score 30 points a game. If they had dominant red zone play, I can only imagine how many points they were scored last year. But tight end, and to me, is just depth on the offensive line. I think they need more depth on that O-line and solidify that and shore it up to where you can get to the point where the Patriots are giving up sacks on the level we saw with Seattle or Denver, where instead of giving up 45, 50, you're down around 30. I think that'd make a huge difference in what kind of offense you're going to be and the health of your quarterback. I think all those things play into it. So edge rusher, tight end, playmaking tight end, and solidify the offensive line.
So I will go edge is number one for me too.
Mm-hmm.
Left guard is number two. And that doesn't mean that should be like a top pick in the draft or whatever, but like they need, right?
Address it.
And a number one wide receiver. I don't want to see them take a guy on day 2. I don't want to see them sign some middle of the depth chart guy. They have those guys, right?
Yep.
Kyle Williams, Kayshon Boutte, make it work with them. You don't need to add there. But A.J. Brown, Casey Concepcion, like somebody like that who you think is going to be the guy that's going to grow with Drake May for the next 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And then my next 3 would be tight end, right tackle, and safety.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think right tackle is one you have to address. Morgan Moses is not going to be around that long. And he did
not have a good Super Bowl.
No, he did not at all. And I think a lot of that's getting overlooked because of the attention. We talk so much about Will Campbell's situation.
It was everybody.
Everybody got smoked. That blitz was coming from every direction, and there was a few plays where Morgan Moses didn't even see the guys coming in. He was looking one way, not blocking anybody, and guys were running by his left or his right. They were getting everybody, and they didn't figure it out until like the third quarter. You started seeing guys get blown up trying to get to Drake May, but they all got smoked. And I think that's a situation where you kind of have to – you got to improve that offensive line so you can handle situations like that and get a little younger, some guys that are a little quicker. Morgan Moses might have saw things coming or whatever, but at his age, seeing it and being able to react and get to it is two different things. And I think that's a situation that they were in the Super Bowl and a lot of the playoffs. Let's just be honest. And I think that's a situation you absolutely have to address. But yeah, I think my list is very similar to yours. I just got the tight end, I think, a little higher. And again, with Stephon Diggs being a 1,000-yard receiver, I still don't think he was the guy that demands a double team or a guy that you game plan and fear. And I think they still need that guy that if he's out on the field, you're like, man, we got to roll all our attention to this side of the field or he's going to cook us. I still think they need that guy. Maybe that is A.J. Brown or Pickens or somebody like that.
I think Diggs is or at least was that guy. The problem was he couldn't beat the double teams. And it became a choke point for the offense. So he was good enough to command it, but not good enough to still be a threat with it. And there's not that many guys that can do that.
Maybe that's 5 left.
All right, let's go to the phones. Tony in Canada has been holding on patiently. Tony, good morning.
Hi, guys. Great show as always.
Thank you.
Wow, I don't know what to say about the Super Bowl. I was more disappointed in past years when we lost than this year. I kind of had more of expectations, so I didn't really know what to expect, and disappointed in the end, but it wasn't as bad as what I thought. And regarding your guys' show, I think we all agree we're probably at least a couple years away from building a team that has a decent run at the Super Bowl again. Last year was kind of, or the last season, this season was kind of unexpected. But a couple of things here to throw in real quick, and then I'll get off the line. Here's something to think about. I'm a big proponent of Steph Diggs. I wanted us to sign him last season, and I'm glad we did. And depending on how his court case goes, maybe we won't have him back. But here's a question or something to think about Barmore. What happens if Barmore's case that looks really bad, everything comes out, and we have to release him because of the domestic abuse? How does that change things? How does our pass rush look without Barmore? Where does that put us in a position? And another thing here, to guys to consider is regarding. It just lost me here. The tight end for the Falcons. That it's a free agent.
Pitts. Yep.
Kyle Pitts. Yep.
Yeah. How would we look with him, considering that Josh, remember when we drafted Jonnu Smith? And tell me if they're two very similar players. We couldn't seem to get Jonnu Smith going. So thanks again for the show. I'll hang up and listen. Go Pats.
Go Pats. Thanks for the call, Tony. On Barmore, we talked about this before. A lot of people make it either or with Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. It's both. That's the key. Defensive tackle, pass rushing defensive tackle becomes a need. If they lose Barmore, or if they have to release Barmore because of the legal stuff. So that's as simple as that. On Pitts, there's some similarities to Jonnu Smith, I guess. The big difference for me, one weakness McDaniels has always had, and I know people ascribe a lot of weaknesses to him, and some of them are unfair. Most of them are unfair. But one thing that he's never been good with the scheme touch players. Mm-hmm. The guys you really have to design not just routes, but specific plays for. And Jonnu Smith is a scheme touch player. Kyle Pitts 6'6",
He's a basketball player.
Right.
Just happens to be
throw it
tight
up
end.
to him. He's not a scheme touch player. So,
find him.
Right. There were some issues with Jonnu Smith's usage. The blocking, there might be some overlap there if they ask Kyle Pitts the way they had to block, the way they asked Jonnu Smith to block. But it's not apples to apples to me. It's a fair question, but it's not apples to apples.
And also, wasn't Jonnu Smith brought in the same time as Hunter Henry?
Right.
And I think Hunter Henry got more of the usage and he's actually a really good season, I believe, that year when they had both of those guys. I think it was kind of like you said, it was a usage target type thing. Not saying he was bad, but I think Hunter Henry just happened to be a perfect fit with Mac Jones at the time. But I think Kyle Pitts, even if you run the same exact stuff you're running now, but with Kyle Pitts, he's faster, he's taller, crazy long arms, crazy vertical. He's just more of a playmaker at that position. Right. Even if you run it, I don't think you have to change much. He's just a guy that can put fear into a defense, can get open across the middle of the field and be a monster in the red zone for this team. So I'm glad he came along this past season to show what kind of talent he really has.
Let's go to Eric in Boston as a trade thought. Eric.
Hey, good morning, fellas.
Morning.
All right, so Marvin Harrison, potential trade. He's been somewhat of a disappointment with the Cardinals. I don't know what they're planning on doing this offseason, but we've seen George Pickens work out with the Cowboys for a third and a fifth. Do you feel like you can call it out and maybe get Marvin Harrison for a similar deal? What do you guys thought?
Thanks for the call, Eric. I don't see it.
I don't see Arizona taking it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what? And he's only 2 years in. So sometimes you see these guys get traded in their third season because the teams aren't going to extend them. If they don't land, let's say they just run it back with Diggs and they keep the wide receiver room relatively similar, he would probably be somebody we'd talk a good amount about next year.
Yeah.
In that, the same way we're talking about I'm trying to think of who the pre-agent wide receivers are. There really aren't a ton, but you talk about in that sense, Arizona's not going to move on from him this soon. Certainly not for third and a fifth. He's going to cost more than that. There were extenuating circumstances with Pickens. I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't see them giving up on him, especially since they know they haven't. The quarterback situation has been a mess for them, so they're trying to figure that out first before they give up on the young receiver.
Let me ask you this. So since we're doing wide receivers getting traded entirely too early, the one that there has been a little bit of noise about in terms of some of the rumors you're seeing and things like that is the Jaguars maybe moving on from Brian Thomas Jr. Jacoby Myers, big hit. They get him at the deadline. They extend him. Parker Washington looked good. Brian Thomas in his first full year with Trevor Lawrence, because remember, last year was a good chunk of Mac Jones. And he was great as a rookie. 87 catches, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's insane.
Did not have the same chemistry with Trevor Lawrence. Some people think maybe they move him. Could be worth more. He might be worth more to them for the return than who he is as they try to build that roster out. They have this other talent at wide receiver. But, man,
I'd take him.
I would.
What's wrong with him?
Exactly.
Why are they so eager?
That's why I don't want him.
That's the problem. Yeah.
He's 23 years old. He had 1,300 yards as a rookie. He's prototypical outside X, 6'2", 210 pounds, big play threat. This is a team with a relatively young quarterback on the upswing, and they're moving that guy, and they might want to move that guy. What do they know that I don't?
He probably called Trevor Lawrence trash in the locker room.
I'm kind of out on Brian Thomas. It's just... If they don't want him, there's no reason that guy should be available. So if he's available, I'm going to quote Joe Murray here. Smelly. It's a little smelly. The Jaguars want to move on from Brian Thomas. I'm out on that one.
I feel that way about Pickens, though. A lot of people want Pickens, and I'm like, yeah, he's failed some smell tests around the league a few times, too, with all the talent. But I think that's a game you play with some of these positions, man. I think I put it like this. I'm going to do my homework and find out why.
Yeah,
I think it's worth finding out what happened.
Pickens is a little
what's
different,
going
though,
on,
because he's one. There's a longer history of established production.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if Brian Thomas Jr. What if his rookie year was just a fluke? You're kind of betting on that too. What if the problem is him and not Trevor Lawrence?
I still think it's Trevor Lawrence.
Pickens, maybe it is. Pickens is also a free agent, so you don't have to give up the draft capital. Like, you're going to have to give up serious draft capital. Brian Thomas. I'll ask you, we're up against it real quick. Same return, Brian Thomas or A.J. Brown?
Ooh, I think I'm going to have to go A.J. Brown. Even though he's reading novels on the sidelines and stuff like that and is having issues with the team that just won a Super Bowl. But I think him along with Vrabel and McDaniels and Drake May would be a dream for every Patriots fan. So, yeah, I'd take him.
A lot of things people were saying about A.J. Brown, they were saying about Stephon Diggs last year, and look at what he came in and did. Yeah. And this is a guy the coaching staff knows. So I would it's probably going to be a first-round pick, maybe first-round pick plus.
I'd take A.J. Brown. Yeah.
I'd take A.J. Brown over Brian Thomas, but is there another guy the Patriots should trade that first-round pick for beyond any of these receivers? We'll get to that next on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
Well, it sounds like they will be one of the suitors. Will they be the suitor? And if there is one player the Patriots could realistically walk away from this offseason with, Cerrone, is there a bigger prize for them, all things considered? Realistically, they're not getting, Justin Jefferson. I know there's been like some, not getting moved. Come on. Is there a bigger prize for them this offseason than Max Crosby?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Look at the games. Just go through the whole season this past season. Look at every game they lost. Now drop Max Crosby in those games. Do you see them losing any of those games? If Max Crosby is out there on the field.
He turned the ball over 5 times against Pittsburgh. That would probably get you. But I'll take a
I still think they almost could have won that game still. I mean, for one, you don't lose to the Raiders because he's on the flip side. But right. That Bills game, you had a 21-point lead. I think if Max Crosby's out there with a 21-point lead, I think it makes a huge difference. Super Bowl, we just mentioned. He gets to Sam Darnold a few times, or because he's out on the field, just being out there alone frees up Barmore and Milton Williams and allows those guys more one-on-one opportunities. I think he just opens everything up for that entire defense and will be a complete game wrecker. We've seen him dominate with bad players around him. Like, he's been in bad situations since he's been in Vegas. What would he look like with a team that's capable of reaching a Super Bowl? What would he look like when there's more talent around him and an offense that can score points to where they have leads to where he can really tee off in the second half? I said the same thing about what's his name in Cleveland. I'm sorry,
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett. Imagine Myles Garrett in a situation where he's not playing from behind his whole career. Like, what would these guys look like? But I think he would be a major upgrade for this Patriots team and would completely change the narrative about how people feel about this team and their chances of getting back to a Super Bowl and being dominant. I think he would be a complete game record for this team. I absolutely would take him.
I go back to something Mike Vrabel said after the Super Bowl. He was asked about the defense's performance. And look, the defense played well enough for the Patriots to win, in theory.
Yeah.
And the offense is the group that let them down. I'm not disputing that. But Vrabel mentioned that the defense, they didn't get that turnover, that big play that they needed given the way the game went. The Patriots, they could have used more from their defense in that game. Mm-hmm. Is it an unfair ask? Sure, but that's life in the NFL. And that's kind of what this Patriots defense was this year. They were very good at preventing opposing offenses from doing anything. Mm-hmm. Which is, baseline, like that's what you're looking for your defense to do at the end of the day. Just don't let the offense move the ball. But the truly great defenses, there's another level where you're not just preventing plays, you're making plays on your own. And I didn't feel like this was a playmaking defense from the Patriots. They were below middle of the pack in turnovers forced. They did get some sacks, but they didn't make a lot of plays of their own. And if you add a guy like Max Crosby next to Milton Williams, next to Christian Barmore, with Gonzalez and Davis as your corners, you're going to intercept like a million footballs.
Yep.
Quarterbacks are going to be panicking, chucking the ball up. Max Crosby, I think, turns this from just a really stout, preventative defense and turns it into a playmaking defense. Mm-hmm. And for all we've talked, the offense needs to be better in this and that. There is room for the defense to get better, and that is the next step for the defense. That's going to help the offense. You're going to create short fields.
Yep.
You're going to stress opposing offenses, things like that. To me, Max Crosby's the guy. So we just did this before the break. A.J. Brown or Brian Thomas, if you're trading your first. If you're trading your first, the Eagles call it like a first and a third for A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Raiders call first and a third for Max Crosby. Similar deal. Maybe it's a little more for Crosby, but similar deals. A.J. Brown or Max Crosby, which move?
Max Crosby.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to go back that far to find evidence in this case. Seattle had the offensive player of the year at wide receiver. He did nothing, and they won the game because of the defense. If A.J. Brown has a bad game, okay, but if you have a guy that's completely destroying the other team's offense, giving you short fields like you mentioned, giving you turnovers. I would say that's the reason why Jacksonville, they had that big turnaround during the season. They got Jacoby Myers, But the big thing with Jacksonville is all of a sudden they started getting a ton of turnovers and getting short fields. And all of a sudden, man, look at Trevor Lawrence. Look at this offense. Yeah, because they were playing from the 40 every time. They were getting so many turnovers. Seattle forced a ton of turnovers. Denver had, 70 sacks or whatever it is, carrying their offense. Having a guy that can turn the ball over, giving Drake May a short field, get him in the red zone, giving Jones room on his punt returns because he's getting it now further upfield as opposed to when it opens everything up and just makes them a scary team to face going forward. But give me the defensive end 100 times. I would take a dominant DN over a dominant receiver any day of the week.
What now? How much would you give up? Like, would you give up this year's first?
Yes.
This year's first and second?
Yeah. 31st pick. I'm giving it up.
I wouldn't borrow a ton from next year. I wouldn't give up next year's first round pick. If it's a first, a second, next year's second, I would do that. I'm not giving up more than one first. I know, and people will point to the Mike Parsons deal and say, well, Parsons went for multiple firsts. Max Crosby's a hell of a player. He's not Mike Parsons. He's older. He doesn't have the positional versatility. He doesn't have the formational versatility. So and he really wants out. With Parsons, there was still some. Are they going to work it out? Yeah. Are they going to get a deal? It sounds like Crosby's just done with the Raiders, so he might have some leverage there. And he doesn't need a new contract. The Packers sold their soul.
Right. The Packers sold their soul to win the Super Bowl this year. They went all in. Very similar to Indy with Sauce Gardner. They just went all in. They thought this was their year. And but the Raiders situation, I think, is totally different than what Green Bay and what Indy was dealing with when they made their big trades. But I don't think you're going to have to give up multiple firsts like the way they did for Parsons.
Right. If it's multiple firsts, I'm out. If it's multiple firsts, I'm out. But if you can get it done with one first and then other, whatever the others are, I think you got to do it.
Yeah.
You're not going to draft a player better than Max Crosby at 31.
Nope. I don't think there's a player in the draft better than Max Crosby, period. I'm not. Mendoza probably won't be better than Max Crosby. But anyway, I'm doing what I can to get that guy in. Like I said, don't be too crazy. Don't give up your entire draft or anything wild like that. Don't be on an ESPN documentary in 10 years. But do what you can to get a guy like that in there. I think he would be an absolute game changer for this team and open up everything else. And he would make them just a fun team to watch because everything goes up. The scoring goes up. The defense numbers go down. They get the turnovers. They get the interceptions. And he'll be a superstar here if he comes.
Let's grab a quick call before we go to the break. Mark in Medford. Mark.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for taking the call. So depending on if Diggs sticks around this year, for next year, one of my favorite receivers this season was Mac Hollins. It just reminds me of that sneaky good wide receiver. He's got speed. He can get downfield for the deep ball and play like Edelman over short passes over the middle. If Diggs does not stick around, obviously Booty would probably be the number one guy. You see Mac Hollins having a more pass catch relationship with Drake May, like as a number 2 receiver next year?
He was basically their number 2 this year. In terms of production, he was their number 2. I think the role he was in is about right. He's older too. I don't think people realize that. He's on the older side as well.
Yeah, he's been around for a little bit.
Yeah, he's entering his age 33 season. I think what you got out of him last year is what he is. And that's fine. And there's no need to go.
Yeah, you need those guys.
Any more of that. So they also got to figure things out with his contract too, because he's got no guaranteed money and probably wants some guaranteed money. He's going to come back and play next year.
And I think the forgotten guy with all this, we haven't mentioned his name once, is they drafted Kyle Williams pretty high.
Right.
I think they want to he's about time for him to, we talked about this youth movement and guys getting better in the offseason and being ready to take a next step. That Kyle Williams is in that conversation as well. I mean, he showed the big playability down the field, but I think you're going to see his targets go up. You're going to see him more involved. And I don't think he was a bad player. I just think they got more out of the guys ahead of him than we all expected going into the season. So he had to wait his turn. But for those who want to see Kyle Williams and Efton Chisholm and all them, well, here's your offseason, and you might get your wish going forward. But I think we're kind of forgetting about them drafting Carl Williams last year in the position they did and his ability, if his targets go up and what kind of player he can become growing along with Drake May and the rest of the young guys on this offense.
All right, speaking of the draft, let's get into some early draft stuff here. Do that next, right after this on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub.
Now at Wendy's, you can go big.
about Labor Day. We was talking draft.
First draft segment of the year, 9:39 on February 15th. Feels kind of good.
Even melted yet.
How about that?
We were still in shorts last year. We were talking about the draft.
Well, here we are. It's Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle, Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
We knew about Will Campbell. He was still playing.
That's right. We are going to start digging into this now, though. Now it is truly draft time. We'll just kind of getting overarching, and we'll get more into it as we go. I wanted to play that highlight. KC Concepcion, wide receiver, I think a potential first-round pick for the Patriots, especially if they move on from Diggs. Concepcion's a guy I really like. We're just kind of doing our guys segment here. Just, players we like, positions. Wide receiver, spent his first couple years at NC State, had a monster true freshman year, was excellent as a true freshman, won ACC Rookie of the Year. The next year, NC State had a ton of quarterback problems. That kind of tanked his production. Transferred to Texas A&M this year and was very good for them. Also very good returner. 5'11", 190, middle of the field guy, very good route runner, good after the catch. I'm going to read you NFL.com. Lance Zierlein does their scouting reports. He does an excellent job. He's one of the guys I trust as I start my research. I'm just going to read you the last line of what Zierlein wrote about KC Concepcion. And you tell me if this sounds familiar. Concepcion's ability to quickly uncover should be very appealing to teams with spotty protection and a young quarterback. Sound like a fit?
Yeah, it does sound like a fit. And I'm pretty sure him and Drake May have a relationship off the field. It's another Charlotte kid.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, he's from New York, but he went to high school in Charlotte.
Okay.
And so I'm pretty sure they've seen each other at some camps and some other. I'm pretty sure they're pretty familiar with each other.
Yeah, they'd be about. Concepcion's a couple years younger. Drake May's last year of high school was what, 2020.
Yeah.
Concepcion was 2022, so there's some overlap there.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, he's a Charlotte kid. Look, I saw him a ton when he was at NC State. He's a good player. He's shifty as all get out. I would compare him to, like Zay Flowers or somebody along those lines.
That kind of player.
Yeah, but he's electric and he can make people miss, and he has the acceleration to. Like I've said this 1,000 times, you need a guy that can take a quick slant to the house. And he's that type of player. And you saw it. He did it in ACC. Then he went and did it in the SEC. So he's a playmaker, good hands, and he is incredibly tough. Julian Edelman type. When he takes a shot, he hops back up. He's a tough player. And look, I would not be against them drafting a kid like that in the first round. If they still have their first round pick and he's still there on the board, I would not be upset to see that dude in the Patriots uniform. He's a good football player.
So when you talk about wide receivers at the end of the first round, it's probably going to be him or Denzel Boston. If either one falls, there's a chance neither falls. Boston from Washington, University of Washington, bigger guy, 6'4", 210, kind of that more traditional, big outside guy, red zone target. Is going to win more with size and physicality than straight line speed, things like that. He had a good player too, but wins in a very different way. If let's say both somehow make it to 31, or the Patriots trade up and they're both on the board, who would you rather see them add?
Concepcion, because I think he's a playmaker. Not saying the other kid isn't. I think Concepcion's ability, like I don't know what his 40 time is, his straight ahead speed or anything like that, but I think his shiftiness, ability to go after the football and make plays after the catch, yards after the catch. I think all those things are what this Patriots team needs, and he's gonna move the chains and he's gonna get in the end zone. I think I'd take him over Boston.
So it's going to be interesting because Denzel Boston is one more the Mike Vrabel kind of receiver. He's always brought in these big outside guys.
Yeah, A.J. Brown.
And we know that Drake May likes throwing to bigger receivers. Mm-hmm. But Concepcion is a Josh McDaniels guy. Like, he's such a fit in what McDaniels wants. And so who wins out? I get Drake May likes throwing to bigger targets. And you can have other bigger targets on the field, a tight end on the outside, things like that. You need a quick guy. You need a quick guy in the middle. And I wonder if that's where McDaniels could maybe win out. It's not like he's not Pop Douglas. He's not 5'8", right? He's 5'11", 190. Like, he's average size.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say size a weakness. It's not a strength, but it's not a weakness.
And think about this: the Super Bowl. You would love to have a guy that got open in 2 steps in that game, to where Drake May can make a quick read and he can make a play. Not so much a big play in that game, but just the guy that's going forward. He's getting you 4 or 5 yards here or there, as opposed to waiting for somebody to get open. And I think I think they want the quick, shifty guy. I think they got honestly. I think they have some big guys.
In theory, you'd draft him and you'd plug him in a Diggs role.
Yeah. That's what you want. I mean, and he's, like I said, a younger version. At this point in his career, he's probably faster. But I mean, I would definitely take him. And the other guy I'd want as well, but he's probably going to be gone, is Mekhi Lemon from USC.
Yeah, people love him. I know Evan Lazar's really high on him. They won probably 5 or 6 too many games to get a shot at Mekhi Lemon.
He's a playmaker, but if he falls and he's sitting there at 31, I'm going to be screaming at the TV for them to draft him. But
I'll say this.
I think he's going to be gone.
Same thing I kind of said about Brian Thomas earlier. If he falls to 31,
something's there.
Somebody knows something I don't, and I don't know that I want him, because there's a reason he's still there, and it's certainly not football. So I think, you talk about first-round picks for the Patriots. Wide receiver is one of the positions I figured we'd start it off there, have some fun. Edge, obviously, is another. This is an excellent edge class. Really, the whole defensive front, edge, defensive line, linebacker, great class. We're going to talk about some guys that talent-wise are probably above the 31st overall pick, but somebody has to fall. You're not going to get like 6 edge rushers in the top 20, but there might be 6 players or 7 players with top 20 talent at the position. So this is a chance to, really punch above your weight. David Bailey was the guy that got talked about during the year. Again, they probably won like 8 too many games to have a shot at David Bailey. Cassius Howell's the one you look at. If he falls a little bit, can you trade up? Akeem Mesidor is somebody I look at, who's your textbook late first-round pick. Really talented player. He was the rusher at Miami opposite Reuben Bain. So he did have some help there, but he wins on his own. He is a little bit older. He'll be a 25-year-old rookie. And there is he has a foot injury in his background that was a little weird. So legit first-round talent, but he's probably going to fall to late first, early second because of some of that other stuff. But when you're picking at 31, like, those are the kind of guys you take a shot on. And he's the kind of guy at that position with what they need, the way he plays, I think you take a shot on the talent.
Yeah. Cassius Howell, you mentioned him.
Yeah.
Another one's kind of fallen a little bit. TJ Parker, I think it's because of because of Clemson's down season, you kind of didn't hear his name mentioned a lot. But if this was a typical Clemson year and everybody's talking about them, I think his name would be a lot higher. But again, like you said, it's so deep that I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think you can say, man, I don't think you're going to be the one guy that drafts the bust, if that makes sense. I think I wouldn't say it's bust free with this position, but I think you can't really go wrong. And I think they all would be decent fits for this team. But TJ Parker, I think, and Cassius Howell might be around for the Patriots when they're picking it at 31.
It's funny when you mentioned about TJ Howell, because even if they don't go edge guy in the first, I got to learn how to pronounce his name. Gabe, Jacas. I want to make sure I can say it on the radio. Was the guy that was getting some first-round looks. Romello Height was getting some first-round looks. And then Denis Dennis Sutton, I really liked last year. I thought he was a top 50 pick last year. Like you said, Parker with Clemson's downfall maybe got knocked. Dennis Sutton didn't have a great year, but Penn State was a mess. There could be value there. Do you believe more in the 24 tape or the 25 tape? But he was somebody that I liked. So that's edge. Tackle's the opposite. Tackle evaporates real quick. I've seen some people put Caden Proctor in Patriots mock drafts. You can cut that out. Like, that guy, he's going top 20. And I know it's kind of fringe right now. He reminds me of, remember when everybody thought they're going to have a shot at drafting Jordan Davis in like the mid-20s? And then he went to the combine and was just unbelievable. And Caden Proctor's that this year. Caleb Lomu is a name that's been out there. He might be there for them. He's a fringe guard tackle. Monroe Freeling's a swing tackle. Blake Miller makes some sense for them. He's a true right tackle. But here's the thing with him. And then we'll get to this guy in a little bit. Blake Miller's a true right tackle, starting caliber right tackle in the NFL. But you're probably going to have to take him at 31 or maybe trade back. Like, you're not going to get him at 63. He's not going to be on the board. Are you willing to take use a first-round pick on essentially Morgan Moses' replacement. So that would mean either you're moving on from Morgan Moses, which maybe they just look at the Super Bowl and say he's done, or like, are you okay sitting your first-round pick? I think Blake Miller makes sense for what they need. Realistically, though, it's kind of tough to see how they make that work. Then you have Max Crosby. I still got to learn that one.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Like a real project player who, again, you probably need to take a 31 or trade back if you're getting him. He's a project. Like, he's not playing year one. Are you using your top pick on that kind of guy?
And it goes back to the conversation we had earlier about the offensive line and their youth. Are you willing to put a third guy out there now that's young and I would say inexperienced, because the guys on the left, they got all the experience they're going to need this season. But are you willing to put another young body on that offensive line?
Well, this is why, again, like, I don't want them to, like, I want them to sign their starting guard. I don't want them to draft their starting guard.
Yeah, and I think you need more veterans on that line. Like you said, if you draft them and draft them just to sit behind Moses and learn a little bit, and then drop them in there next season or whatever, or maybe season after, that's fine. I think you're going to be answering a lot. Like, for example, and this is going to happen if they draft a tackle. I don't care if it's right or left.
Yeah,
we're going to be talking about, is he Will Campbell's replacement for the next 3 months? That's all the conversation. Well, is Will Campbell going to be kicked inside?
Even if he's a guy that only plays right tackle,
we're still going to. That's all you're going to hear. Yeah, are you going to avoid a guy just because you don't want to deal with that conversation and put that kind of pressure on Campbell?
Where's Joe Milton playing now?
Yeah, good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it past him. All right, we're up against it. Give me one other guy from another position that you like for the Patriots in this draft. Just give me a name.
Oh man, my guy, I mentioned him, but it was Lemon. That was the other guy I was going to throw out there as my dark horse guy that I was hoping would slip to the Patriots, but it's like you said, I didn't think about that. If he does slide to 31, then something went terribly wrong. He might have had a bad combine. All those things that could happen, but yeah, that was my dark horse guy that I was low key wanting the Patriots to pick up.
So there's a bunch of other guys I like. Again, we got a couple months here to go through it. One more name I'll give out, though, at linebacker. We had the caller earlier getting a coverage linebacker. Mm-hmm. Kyle Lewis from Pitt. Hyper athletic, knows for the football, can cover tight ends, can cover running backs. You put him next to Robert Spillane, and Spillane's your downhill, sideline to sideline, run-stopping guy. Kyle Lewis is really going to shine on third downs, right? Kind of an upgrade over Christian Ellis. Supposed to be like a late day 2 pick. I really like him for the Patriots. So,
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, because I was going to go to break.
No, I was just going to say, Penn State. Penn State used to be linebacker U, but I don't know what happened. But I think you can go wrong getting some of these linebackers out of Penn State. They seem to get it right.
Well, so that was Pitt.
Oh, Pitt. I'm sorry. I thought you said Penn. Penn. I'm sorry.
Right over there. No, I'm my bad if I did. That was Pitt. That's not one you want to mix up. As somebody whose brother went to Pitt. So, but somebody to watch there. Anyway, we'll be back and wrap it up next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
Ski season is here. Before you hit the
and Cerrone Battle are here. Talking football every Sunday morning with the insiders and with you. It's Sunday Kickoff on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Wrapping it up here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, we got Joe Murray and Kendra Middleton coming up next. Maybe Kendra can give you a little more on why Brian Thomas Jr. is available, because I still don't fully understand that. Anything else, Cerrone, that we didn't get to today before we head out on our first off-season show of the year?
No, I just would bring up, losing that game is not the end of the world. I mean, they lost in the Super Bowl, so all the talks about them being terrible for the next 15 years, I think, are a little ridiculous. They have their issues, things they need to fix. But the teams that they stomped over to get their way to the Super Bowl, they have issues, too, that they need to fix going into the next season. So I wouldn't write them off just yet because they lost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, look, it's this wasn't their last go at it. Exactly. This is a team with a young core, still has a way to go, and they'll keep building that core, and we will keep you up to date on all of it. Next week, Combine preview. Already. Again, this is going to be a sprint of an offseason. This is not going to be a marathon like the last few years. Combine is in 2 weeks, and then we'll be right into free agency. So we are off and running. Thanks so much to everybody who tuned in, called in today. We got, real quick, Patty Nagwam. I didn't see you were on the line. Real quick, what do you got before we wrap it up?
All right. Sorry, guys. I'll make it quick. Here's what I would do. I would either let Christian Barmore walk or see what you can get for a trade and sign John Franklin Myers in free agency. I think he's got a little bit better sack production. I think he's just as good against the run. And if you're willing to let Steph Diggs go, I would sign a guy like Alec Pierce and kind of hedge my bets that Kyle Williams is going to take that year 2 leap, because I'm not giving up my 27 first-round pick, because I think that's going to be a historic wide receiver class, and I would take any one of those guys. That's all I got.
Thanks for the call, Patty. A lot of names are going to throw around here over the next few months, and we'll be with you for all of it again. Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff runs through the draft. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, Sports Hub YouTube channel, you missed any of the show, or Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, wherever you get your podcast. Me and Matt Dolph will have thoughts on the offseason, as well as the Patriots on the Patriots Hub podcast, which you can find anywhere as well. So until next week, Ryan Garvin, great job for Cerrone Battle. I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.
From the Town Fair Tire Studios, Dutcher and Hardy, Owen Beetle, Felger and Mass,